Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the fascinating science of overthinking. We really want to figure out what's actually happening inside our brains and, honestly, the most crucial part, how we can finally hit the brakes and stop those endless mental loops. So, let's jump right in.
Okay, so have you ever found yourself completely trapped in an endless loop of your own thoughts? We all know that absolutely exhausting feeling, right? You try your hardest to just shake the thoughts off, but man, they just get louder and way more persistent. And you try to overanalyze your way out of it, but that honestly just creates more mental clutter. Well, today, we're going to unpack exactly why this happens. And spoiler alert, as you'll see, it's way less of a personality flaw and much more of a mechanical misfire going on in the brain.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll be hitting 6 main stops today. 1. The overthinking phenomenon. 2. Anxiety versus depression. 3. Inside the overthinking brain. 4. The hierarchy of thoughts. 5. The brain-wave connection. And finally, 6. Rewiring your mind.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the overthinking phenomenon. We really need to start by completely debunking a massive internet myth about what overthinking actually is.
Just listen to this brilliant insight from clinical psychology. Anxiety is not overthinking, it's overfeeling without contact. Wow, that literally hits the nail on the head. It reveals that what looks like a mental problem, too many thoughts moving way too fast, is actually an emotional overload. The mind is spinning just because the body's feelings haven't found a safe space or even the right language to land. So your nervous system is basically just reacting to what hasn't been fully felt yet.
So going by the actual definition, overthinking isn't just thinking too much. In the psychiatric world, it's recognized as a state of cognitive dysregulation. It's an actual, literal breakdown in our executive function and emotional control. When your system gets flooded, your brain loses its ability to shift focus or make decisions. It's what we call analysis paralysis. And sure, sometimes this is caused by excitement, but it's most often driven by a really deep underlying fear or just a completely flooded nervous system.
And hey, if you feel like you're all alone in this, consider this number, nearly 30%. 30% of adults will be affected by an anxiety disorder at some point in their lives. That means literally millions of people are fighting this exact same exhausting internal noise right now. It is incredibly common, so you are definitely not alone.
Moving right along to Section 2, Anxiety versus Depression. We're going to explore how this mental overload actually splits into 2 very distinct paths.
You see, overthinking manifests very differently depending on the underlying condition. Anxiety, well, that lives in a hypothetical future. It's future-focused negative thinking that's just full of what-ifs. What if it won't work? Or what if I humiliate myself? Depression, on the flip side, anchors us in the unchangeable past. It's past-focused negative thinking, filled with heavy statements like, I should have done that, or that was my absolute worst mistake.
Okay, let's look under the hood in Section 3. Inside the overthinking brain. We need to see what is physically malfunctioning when we get stuck in these wild, time-traveling thoughts. To really grasp overthinking, you have to understand these 3 core brain networks. First up, the salience network. Think of this as your brain's emotional alarm bell. It detects significant stimuli and tells you what to pay attention to. Second, we have the central executive network. This is the boss that handles your focus, planning, and goal-directed behavior. And third, the default mode network. This guy takes care of mind-wandering, creativity, and reflecting on the past or future. Now, in a healthy brain, these networks work in perfect harmony. There's this really delicate balance, an anti-correlation between the central executive network and the default mode network. Basically, when one is active, the other really should be quiet.
But here is exactly where the whole system breaks down. When your emotional alarm bell, that salience network, rings way too loud, your brain's mind-wandering system literally intrudes on your focus. The default mode network completely hijacks your central executive network. This network intrusion is exactly why you absolutely cannot concentrate when you're anxious. Your prefrontal cortex gets weakened and your mind-wandering system just takes the wheel, looping negative thoughts totally out of your control.
So, let's move on to Section 4, the hierarchy of thoughts, and let's trace how a simple little worry escalates into a complete mental takeover.
This breaks down a very distinct thought hierarchy, showing how we lose our executive control step by step. We start off with normal thoughts. These are totally controllable and context-dependent. But then we degrade to preoccupations. Those are those anxious, repetitive what-ifs, where you kinda still have some control.
Next up are obsessions, which feel intrusive and senseless, and they often trigger compulsive behaviors just to relieve the anxiety. Now, if the brain loses even more control, we hit ruminations. These are completely all-consuming, past-focused thoughts that can occupy up to 90% of a patient's day. We see this a lot in depressive states. Finally, in the most severe cases, this degrades into delusions, where thoughts become completely disconnected from reality.
Now, just to prove this isn't all just in your head, let's look at Section 5, the brain-wave connection, to explore the hard biological markers of overthinking.
The hard data here is absolutely fascinating. Tracking low beta brainwaves shows us that persistent, high-amplitude low beta waves are directly associated with ruminating and sympathetic hyperactivity. Basically, your nervous system is in overdrive. But in clinical studies, mind management interventions actually measurably alter these low beta brainwaves compared to a control group. We can literally measure the brain calming down in real time. How cool is that?
And the physical evidence actually goes even deeper than that. Let's talk about homocysteine. It's a stress biomarker in your blood, an amino acid that when elevated is highly associated with anxiety, stress, and even direct neurotoxicity. It is truly incredible that as patients in these studies lowered their mental stress and their low beta brainwaves dropped, the biological toxins in their blood, like homocysteine, dropped right alongside them. So healing your thoughts literally cleanses your blood.
And all of this creates this truly beautiful cycle of wellness. Your psychology, your neurology, and your biology are totally 100% intertwined. A psychological intervention lowers those anxious thoughts, which neurologically lowers the low beta brainwaves, which then biologically lowers blood homocysteine. Healing one helps heal them all. It's a great reminder that you are a complete, beautifully interconnected system.
So, the absolutely crucial point we need to get to is this. How do we actually fix this network dysregulation and finally find some peace? Let's dive into our final segment, Section 6, Rewiring Your Mind.
Here is your practical toolkit, based directly on the clinical research. First up, optimize your sleep and exercise. This directly lowers the physical, emotional arousal that triggers that salience network we talked about. Second, therapies like exposure and response prevention or cognitive behavioral therapy. These actually train your brain to tolerate uncertainty without going into those endless loops. Third, we have structured mind management programs, like the 63-day neurocycle. This uses a really effective 5-step process. Gather, reflect, write, recheck, and active reach to actively train your central executive network to take back control. And finally, target the body. Let your nervous system feel seen. Try to track the raw feeling that's trying to emerge underneath the thought, rather than just arguing with the thought itself.
I really want you to absorb this core message. Your brain is not permanently broken. Mental health conditions are no one's fault. Realizing that your overthinking is basically just a mechanical network intrusion, your default mode network hijacking your focus because your alarm bell got stuck, rather than a personal failure, that is incredibly empowering. Your brain is a highly adaptable system, and it has simply practiced the wrong patterns. It is entirely capable of being rewired.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this really provocative question to reflect on. What is one emotional truth your body is trying to tell you today that your mind is frantically trying to solve by overthinking? Seriously, try to stop fighting the mental noise for just a moment today, look beneath it all, and ask yourself what your body is truly asking for. Thank you so much for joining me, and hey, here's to finally breaking the loop.